When my dad saw me limping across the grocery store parking lot with my daughter on my hip, he didn't wave. He stared. The kind of stare that scans for what's missing. "Why you walking?" he asked, already looking past me like the car might materialize if he searched hard enough. "Where's your car?" I shifted my daughter higher. My hip ached. I had been pretending it didn't for weeks. "His mom took it," I said. I kept my voice even. I'd learned that tone. She said it makes more sense if she uses it. And I'm lucky they let me stay there. He didn't blink. There are moments when someone hears your explanation and translates it into something truer than you meant to say. "Jet in the car," he said. "We're fixing this tonight." He didn't ask if I wanted to go back. He didn't debate whether it was complicated. He didn't suggest we talk later. He opened the passenger door. I sat there on the drive home staring at my hands. I used to be decisive. I used to own a car in my name, a savings account, a sense that partnership meant sharing. Somewhere between maternity leave and temporary adjustments, things shifted. The car became household property. My income became supplemental. My opinions became emotional. None of it was loud enough to call abuse, just structured enough to make me feel small. By the time we pulled into the driveway of the house I lived in but did not feel I owned, my stomach felt hollow. My mother-in-law opened the door before we knocked. She looked surprised, but only mildly. She always kept her expressions tatey. "Oh," she said, "we weren't expecting company." My dad stepped in without waiting for invitation. Not aggressive, not shouting. Just present in a way that altered the temperature of the room. My husband came from the kitchen, wiping his hands. He smiled at first. "What's going on?" My dad answered calmly. "We're here about the car." There it was. A simple object, a measurable thing. My mother-in-law sighed softly, like this was a misunderstanding that required patience. It just made sense. She said, "She's home all day. I run errands. We're a family. We share." I felt that familiar urge to smooth it over, to explain that I didn't mind, that it wasn't a big deal. My dad didn't let the silence stretch long enough for me to shrink. "Her name is on the title," he said evenly. "And on the loan." I checked. The room shifted. Not dramatically. No gasps, just stillness. My husband frowned. "Why would you check?" "Because she was limping across a parking lot with a baby," my dad replied. "That's why." My husband looked at me then, not angry, more unsettled, as if he just realized something he hadn't needed to consider before. "It's temporary," he said. "We're managing finances." My dad nodded. "Good. Then you understand documentation." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded paper. "A lawyer explained shared property rights to me this afternoon. If access to jointly owned assets is withheld again, we'll address it formally." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He stated. And that was the moment everything changed. Control thrives in vagueness, in polite language, we'll talk later. When something becomes concrete paper, law, keys, it loses its disguise. My mother-in-law stood very still. My husband walked to the hallway table. The keys were there. They'd been there all along. He picked them up and held them for a second, like they weighed more than metal should. Then he handed them to me. Not to my dad, to me. "Fine," he said. If it matters that much, it wasn't triumphant, it wasn't loud, but it was unmistakable. I wrapped my fingers around the keys and felt something strange, relief braided with embarrassment. Why hadn't I pushed back sooner? Why did it take my father standing in my living room for this to feel unacceptable? Because subtle control teaches you to doubt your threshold. It makes you ask if you're overreacting before you ever ask if something is wrong. My dad didn't stay long after that. He didn't lecture. He didn't celebrate. At the door, he looked at me carefully. "You don't need permission to use what's yours," he said. After he left, the house felt different, not warmer, not healed, measured. My husband avoided my eyes for the rest of the evening. My mother-in-law stayed in her room. No one apologized, no one escalated, but something quiet had snapped into place. Later that night, I sat at the kitchen table alone. The keys were in front of me. My reflection in the dark window looked older than I remembered. Borrowed power only gets you so far. So I stood up, walked into the living room, and said what I should have said months ago. I need direct access to our accounts. I told my husband. My voice shook, but I didn't lower it. And I'm scheduling my own appointments from now on. If something changes about property or money, we decide together, not by default. He didn't explode. He didn't argue loudly. He hesitated. That's dramatic, he said. No, I replied. It's basic. We stared at each other for a long moment. Not enemies, not partners either, something in between. The next morning, I drove myself to my doctor's appointment. No announcement, no confrontation. Just the sound of the engine starting under my control. The limp was still there. Healing takes time. But I wasn't asking anyone if I could go anymore. And that was new.